All right, we have a couple circles drawn, and now we have to write the equation. Well, here's the deal. Let's go back to this one. If I give you a graph, we just need to find the necessary components in order to write the equation. So here goes. By the time I'm done with this thing, I better know my center, and I better know my radius. And we'll do that for this one as well. Center and the radius. The center here, and I'm gonna eyeball it. That's just my way of saying I'm gonna estimate it, and I think it's gonna be very accurate. Sometimes it's a little more difficult, but in these two problems, I made it to where you can find it pretty easily. Center, 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 there it is. There we go, that's it. That's the middle. And we can kind of tell, because if you were to draw this, this would be the diameter. If you were to draw this, this would be the diameter, and you have cut this circle into perfect quarters. So now what I really need to do is tell you where that point is. Now, this is not the origin. It looks like it is, but it's not. That's the origin. So we go over 2 and down 3. The radius is 1, 2, 3, 4. So we have everything we need, and we'll just write the equation. X minus 2 squared, y minus negative 3 squared equals 4 squared, which would be 16. Okay, let's do this next one. And this one's going to be tricky in a very subtle way. So from here to here, there's my diameter. From here to here, there's another diameter. There's an infinite number of diameters, but those are the obvious ones because they're completely horizontal, completely vertical. There's my center right there. And so that center is at negative 1, comma 0. Negative 1, comma 0. And then if I want to know my radius, I can just count to any edge. So like 1, 2, 3. There we go. So radius is 3. So x minus negative 1 squared plus, okay, I'm going to write some stuff that's very unnecessary here, but the first time you do one like this, you might write it and not realize you've written it. So I'm going to do that too. So y minus 0 squared equals 3 squared, that would be 9. And this is right, it's totally right, but nobody writes minus 0 because when you subtract 0, what do you get? Well, that's what you had to start with. There we go. That's what we have. And you can write it like that. You can drop the parentheses, it's okay. Okay, we have two more problems, and they're going to be a little bit different because now we don't have a graph, we don't have very much to go on at all. I'm going to draw a graph just to kind of get a visual, but it's not going to be perfect, okay? So let's just go ahead and do this. What is the equation of a circle with the center at negative 1, 2? Okay, negative 1, 2. We're going to put that there. And includes the point negative 13, 7. What? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There. What in the world are we doing? Okay, first of all, let's notice that I need two things in order to write the equation of a circle. I need the center, I need the radius. I already know one of them. So if there's partial credit somehow in this, then when I'm writing my equation, I can go ahead and tell you the center. I don't know the radius, but I can tell you the center. So x plus 1, notice it's opposite, x minus 2. Okay? Now, here's the hard part. Based on the way this graph is tilted, I can't just simply count and get there. I can't be like 1, 2, 3, 4. I can't. Now, I could. That is not a straight circle. Well, circles aren't straight, but you know what I mean. Circles are supposed to be round. I could use the Pythagorean theorem on that triangle that I drew right there, and it's perfectly valid. I could totally do it. And I'm actually going to, but it's not always convenient. So I'm going to also do a different method. I'm going to use the distance formula. I'm actually going to do the distance formula first. And so let's actually write that formula. So the distance, and this is a formula that seems to come out of nowhere, but here it is. I need to know the distance from the center to here, which will tell me the radius in this case. But the distance is the square root of x2 minus x1 squared y2 minus y1 squared. Now that might look familiar from previous math courses. And this is the distance between any 2 points. The distance is this between 2 points, like x1 comma y1 and x2 comma y2. So you have your first x, your first y, your second x, your second y. That one's a 1, that one's a comma. There we go. And that's the formula I'm going to use. Again, I have another option, but, well, we'll get there. So my radius, the distance from the center to the edge, is, switching back to black here, the distance between here and here. So let's just do it. I'm gonna call this point x1. I'm gonna call that one y1. I'm gonna call this x2. I'm gonna call this y2, and then we're gonna use those points. So plug them in the formula. Don't make it harder than it is. Just watch your signs. Negative 13 minus negative 1, and then 7 minus 2 squared. Now this one works out very neatly actually, and I'm not going to grab a calculator for it because this one is a very nice, neat number. So even though you might jump to the calculator on one like this, let me just guide you through this one super fast because I want to prove a point. That becomes negative 12 squared, and that becomes 5 squared. And when we do all this, we end up with the square root of 169, which is 13. My radius took me a while, but I got it to be 13. Okay, so in a minute, we'll come back and finish the problem, but let me talk about something. If we drew this and drew it right, then this distance is the distance between negative 13 and negative 1. That would be 12. See that 12 right there? Now I know it's a negative, but let's ignore that because we're talking about distance. This distance is the distance between 2 and 7. That would be 5. If you wanted to use the Pythagorean theorem to get this, I'm going to call it R instead of C, you'll still get the same thing. 169 equals R squared, so R equals 13. Okay? Now, when I plug a number in here, let me go back to the front side, which is on a separate sheet for me. I need not R, but R squared. So I don't need to plug 13 here. I need to plug in 13 times 13. I already know what that is. I found it here. I actually knew it here as well. Okay, so actually, if you wanted to stop, you could say square root of 169 and be like, you know what, I don't even care what it is. Let's just put a 169 there. Okay, not a square root of 169, just a 169. Let's do one more. What is the equation of a circle with a center here that includes that point? Okay, so now, again, we have the center, we need a point, and so it's going to look very similar in the process. It's just extra practice. So negative 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Don't feel like you have to draw it. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So there we go. There's your radius. Here's your circle. That is not a good circle, but there's your radius right there. So the only thing I don't know is my radius. What I do know is the center. So I can use the Pythagorean theorem or not. And I'm going to not use the Pythagorean theorem. I'm going to use the distance formula because sometimes it's sort of hard to visualize. So let's just go straight to a formula. So the radius is the distance between these 2 points. I'm looking up here as I do that. So it's going to be the square root of 4 minus negative 4. 4 minus negative 4, that'd be 4 plus 4. Go ahead and put an 8 if you want to. 9 minus 6. 9 minus 6, we'll square that. So if you type all this in your calculator, you can run into a lot of errors, and that's okay. Just be careful. Well, it's not okay, but be careful. So we have 4 plus 4 squared, so that is 64 plus 3 squared, which would be 9, which is going to give me the square root of 73. Yeah, good luck with that one. Okay, now I don't know what the square root of 73 is. It's a little more than 8. Oops, that's not how you get there. There we go. It's 8.5-ish. That's not what I want, though. I mean, let's be real honest. when I find out what goes here, I need the radius squared. So, I mean, I could put like 8.544 right here, but I need 73 right there. Because whatever this is as a decimal, if I was to square it, I'd get 73.